Hey everybody, this is Stanpai, and if you're tuning into this video, there's a pretty good chance you're interested in learning more about being a voice actor. Everybody and their mother knows somebody who's interested in doing voiceover, but what does it actually take to get started? Well, in this video series, How to Voice Acting, my hopes are to give you the basic tools you'll need so that you can get yourself started and do things the right way so that you can do what you want to do and pursue that love of voiceover that you have deep in your heart. Whether you're a hobbyist or somebody who's interested in actually pursuing this professionally, my hopes are to give you things that are universally useful, something that you can apply to any different avenue of the profession. In this first video, we're not going to be covering how to do specific voices. We're not going to be covering microphones. We're not going to be covering any of those things, because before you can do any of that, the most important thing is to make sure your voice is actually capable of performing. What do I mean by that? Well, I want you to think about if you've ever gone to a musical concert. Maybe the music was very loud and you were excited and you screamed. I know I've been there. Well, usually what ends up happening is you're screaming at the top of your lungs, you're super excited, and when you leave the show, you realize your voice is now kind of like this. Well, that's because you didn't prepare your vocal cords. Now, obviously, screaming your head off is not the best way to keep your voice in shape, but I can guarantee you that if you do proper vocal warm-ups, even screaming at a concert could be something that your voice could endure. Now, what we're going to do today is go over the importance and some different ways that you can do vocal warm-ups. I want to stress very, very emphatically how important it is to take care of your voice, because your voice is your instrument, right? And if it's not functioning properly, you can't do the job. You can't perform. So this is something that really needs to be taken seriously before you even get started, and that's why it is the first installment of How to Voice Acting. Now, I'll start by saying that there are a lot of different ways that people can do vocal warm-ups. The most important thing to keep in mind is that this is meant to give you a start. This is meant to get you ready. Just like when you were going to the gym and wanted to start lifting weights, you do some light stretches and some smaller weights before you get into the heavy stuff to make sure that your body is ready. So what we're going to do is a very simple starting voice warm-up, which goes a little bit like this. You open your mouth and you make noise like you're holding a music note. So, let's do this together. Go ahead and say ah. Ah. Cool. So you've gone ahead and done the very simple ah, and now you want to go a little bit further. Well, now you can move up and down like you're singing on different musical scales. I'm jumping all the way around. Obviously, there's a lot of crazy sounds coming out of my mouth, and if somebody was looking at me, they might think I was going insane. But fortunately for you, dear listener, I know you're not crazy. You're just warming up for your voice performance. So don't be self-conscious about it. Everybody does it. It's very important. If they don't do it, they're going to hurt themselves and probably lose their voice eventually. So now that you've got the basic intro, you can keep expanding on that. What I like to do, as a sort of routine of my own, I think about different examples in media that I've personally enjoyed through the past that have given me a chance to do that kind of a vocal warm-up while also recalling something entertaining. So the first I'd like to reference is a vintage meme. Yes, that is the Trollolo video. If you've ever seen that video, well, obviously, that guy has a lot of really cool things going on with his voice. But what I really like about it is that it moves up and down through the different musical scales while also giving you solid vibrations to get your voice warmed up. Now, what's also good about the trollololo is that your tongue is moving around, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about. Your tongue is how you're going to be producing a lot of the sounds when you're saying words. Think about the way that your mouth is moving every time you speak. Think about the way different sounds are made, the way your tongue is positioned. So, while you're doing your warm-up, start adding some tongue movement to it. So, as I mentioned, just play around with that. And if you want to go through the Trollolo song, well, that's a great way to get yourself warmed up. I am certain that if you start from beginning to end, your voice will probably be pretty warmed up by the time you've finished going la-da-da-da-da. So, maybe you want to try something else. Another fun one I like to think of, Oh, 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 oh. For those who are fans of Halo, like myself, you probably recognize the Halo theme. Yes, those vocal chants that happen in the Halo opening are a great way to get yourself warmed up as well. And all sorts of different kinds of chants like that. I mean, anything that gives that kind of a sound. I know I'm repeating myself a lot on this subject, but I really think it's important to just take your time. Give yourself the opportunity to get warmed up and have fun with it so that when you're ready to get recording, you don't feel like you just wasted time. You know, you're having a good time thinking about some stuff you like and making some fun sounds while playing around with your voice. And now, after you've had the chance to warm yourself up a bit, you could start getting into the voiceover. Now, there are some extra things you can do as well, some really important things. I already mentioned moving your tongue around and being mindful of how your tongue interacts with your mouth so that you can make specific sounds, but there's also your face. So while you're doing your vocal warm-ups, think about your facial expressions and start moving your face around while you're talking, while you're making noises. Obviously, you're hearing me sound kind of funny now. That's because I'm moving my lips and my face around in different ways to stretch out my muscles and make sure that I'm completely ready. So, now that we've gone over a bunch of these very simple techniques, I want you to go ahead and take the opportunity to think about some different ways you can play around with vocal warm-ups. And remember, the most important thing is not which ones you do, it's making sure your voice is actually ready to begin, because I cannot stress enough how significant of a problem it is for people who overdo it and choose to do things without warming up properly. You just wouldn't do that if you were thinking about the consequences. Another thing on the subject of consequences, you may have heard once or twice in your life that smoking is bad for you. Well, as it turns out, smoking is also bad for you if you're an actor. Yes, you might be able to produce a kind of cool sound. You might get that cool raspy voice or something thrown on top of that. And that's great if that's what you're going for. But in reality, prolonged smoking can actually damage your vocal cords as well. What a surprise! Something that could damage your lungs could have an effect on your ability to be a voice actor? As it turns out, that's true. And that advice actually came to me from Paul St. Peter a number of years ago. Some of you may recognize him from working on a number of different anime, as well as being the voice of Dire and Wham in JoJo, or, as I first heard him, Xemnas in Kingdom Hearts. Really, in general, just think about things like that when you're considering whether or not you want to start smoking or any kind of habit that could damage your vocal cords. These are constantly things to be mindful of. I mean, if you were a carpenter, you wouldn't do things that could damage your hands. Similarly, if you're a singer or an actor or anything like that that requires your voice, you should avoid doing things that would damage your voice. Finally, something very important, make sure that you rest. Sleep is always good, but also if you've had a very long session or you've been recording for an extended period of time, trust your body. Your body's not going to lie to you. If you're feeling something's going wrong, you should stop. You should take the time and let yourself recover, because if you keep going, you could break your voice. And I mean like literally permanent damage. It's something to just be mindful of. It's possible that it could happen, and it becomes chronic. I mean, there's nothing you can really do about it. I don't want to leave you with a sense of fear and, oh no, is this going to happen to me? It will if you're not careful and not considerate of your limitations. Don't go too far. If things get out of hand, take that reasonable moment to stop, ask yourself if you can keep going, and if not, just save it for the next session, because otherwise, again, you'll ruin your dream before it even begins. Keep that in mind. Always be healthy, and of course, stay hydrated, right? That's another pretty common sense thing to keep in mind. So I always try to keep a water bottle next to me. Just make sure you stay hydrated, because that is another very important component to keeping your instrument completely tuned and ready to go. Anyway, that about wraps things up. So just to give you a quick conclusion, a summary, if you will, the first thing is, of course, make sure that you are warming up by doing some very simple vocal noises. spice it up by throwing in something fun that you know. And of course, make sure to stay hydrated, move your face muscles, keep that tongue moving, and just keep fully aware of the importance of taking care of yourself. I wanted to do this video first because, again, as important as it is to be able to do voices and as important and exciting it is to get into doing it, people love to just overlook this very important first step, and honestly, you're going to take yourself out of the game before you even start. So, my name's Stanpai. I hope you found this video to be informative. I intend to continue with more voice acting tutorials in the How to Voice Acting series. Please be sure to stick around and check out some other videos here on my channel. Most of the content I do here is centered around voice acting anyway. This has been a pretty conversational video, but when I'm actually performing, you'll notice a pretty significant difference, and that's just part of the fun. So, take care of yourself, get ready. Next time, we're going to be going into some more actual voice acting directly related subjects, and I hope to see you there. If you have any subjects that you'd specifically like to hear me talk about, please let me know in the comments section of this video. And of course, click like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this kind of content, so I know that people actually like it. Until next time, this is Stanpai reminding you to always do your vocal warm-ups. Take care.